following is a production of Cary TV, the Town of Cary's government access channel.
Call to order the October 21st meeting of the Cary Town Council. And at this time, I'll recognize Councilmember Yalu for our ceremonial opening.
Thank you, Mayor. Please join me for Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is to adopt the agenda. Is there a motion to do so?
Oh, okay. So moved.
There's a motion
Second.
and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We now move to recognitions, reports, and presentations. And we'll start with the Cary Band Day Proclamation presentation.
Those are never good.
Thank you. Welcome. Very much. Good to see you again. See you. So this is a special time of year. If you've never been to a band day, you need to go to the Cary Band Day because that's something special. This will be the 62nd Cary Band Day. And we even have a council member who discovered Cary via the Cary Band Day, Jennifer Robinson. That was only a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So it's a very special time. I've been there many, many times, and I've loved it. It's been fascinating, and I never played in the band, so I thought it was great, and I'm looking forward to going this year, make a few remarks, and see a few bands play. But to recognize that special day, I would like to read a proclamation. Recognizing October 30th, 2021 as the 62nd Cary Band Day. Whereas, Cary High School Band has proven its musical and marching abilities throughout the years by its continuing achievements of both national and regional recognition for its accomplishments. And whereas, members of the Cary High School Band have brought much honor to the town of Cary and its citizens while maintaining high scholastic aptitudes. And whereas, music plays an increasingly important role in our world today. It is the language of all people and one of the greatest forces in creating peace and harmony. And whereas 2021 marks the 100th anniversary of the Cary Band, which started in 1921. And whereas the band has been proud to host for the past 62 years the greatest celebration of marching bands and music education excellence in North Carolina. Now, therefore, I, Harold Weinbrecht Jr., Mayor of the town of Cary, North Carolina, on behalf of the entire Cary Town Council, do hereby proclaim Saturday, October 30th, 2021, as the 62nd Cary Band Day, and I urge all citizens of Cary and the surrounding areas to join in honoring and supporting this long-standing Cary tradition proclaimed this 21st day of October, 2021.
Thank you. My name is Chris Foster. I'm the band director at Cary. My first year was in 2019, and we're started doing research on how long the history of Cary Band is, and we found out that, just so lucky that it's our 100th year anniversary.
Wow. Oh.
Something that we're really excited about as well is that if you ever go to Cary High School, on the wall of the gymnasium is the words for the alma mater. The music has been lost in time for the last 40 or 50 years. In our research, we found out that a little blurb in a newspaper said that to the music of. So I had the lyrics and then to the music of. So now myself and the choir director, we reimagined the music. And we're doing a new world premiere of the Cary High School alma mater this Friday at our football game.
Wow, that's great.
So it's been lost in time and we reimagined it now. So we're super excited about that.
That's awesome.
That's great.
Thank you very much.
Neat.
And now one of my favorite times of the council meeting, our 150th history moment from Mr. Ura.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
At this time of year, many folks look forward to cemeteries for a good fright. But Halloween is actually based on a holiday initially meant to pay homage to the dearly departed. Therefore, for this history moment tonight, I thought we might take a look at Cary's 3 landmark designated cemeteries and their occupants, so to speak, who contributed so valuably to our community during their lives here in Cary. And we're going to start with Hillcrest Cemetery. Located on Page Street downtown, this nearly 5-acre burial ground is home to over 2,000 graves. It's significant as the final resting place of many people who made contributions to Cary's social, economic, political, and religious diversity and development in the 19th and 20th centuries. The 2 oldest burials found in Hillcrest date to 1840. There's that of Nathaniel Jones on your left here. You can't really make it out too well, but it's one of the many Nathaniel Joneses in Cary's early history. In August, he died in August of 1840. And on the right-hand side, that of Henry Jones, who's the husband of Nancy Jones, who was known as Anne, and is interred here with Henry and Nancy being the first occupants of the now famous Nancy Jones house. As a matter of fact, Jones is the most common name found in Hillcrest. There are over 50 Joneses. Rounding out the 10 most common names found are some familiar ones. There's Smith, Williams, Hunter, Matthews, Maynard, Templeton, Waldo, Jordan, and Pleasance. Interred at the cemetery are 17 former Cary mayors, including H.B. Jordan on the left, a member of Cary's first town council, which was called a commission in those days, and he's the patriarch of Cary's current Jordan family. And on the right, Rufus Jones, often referred to as Cary's most esteemed citizen, and who donated the original land for Hillcrest Cemetery. There's also Mayor Fred Bond, the beloved namesake of Bond Park, and the uncle of our Mayor Weinbrecht. And on the right-hand side, Robert Mayton and his wife, the namesakes for the Mayton on Academy Street. Also, Robert Harrison, Uncle Bob, he was called, the proprietor of the Harrison Wagon Company and the namesake of Harrison Avenue. And on the right-hand side, J.P.H. Adams, one of our earliest developers, and he's the namesake of Adams Street, right across Academy from where we're sitting now. And members of the business community, Russell Heater, known to all as Mr. Cary, and developer of Russell Hills, one of Cary's early subdivisions, named after himself. On the right is Henry Adams, who was a community leader in many ways, and he was the pharmacist who happened to sell his drugstore to the Ashworths. Then you have Jacob and Helen Walker, longtime proprietors of the Walker Hotel, and namesakes of the Page Walker Arts and History Center. She looks like a hospitable hostess, doesn't she? Leading educators are buried there also, such as Marcus Baxter Dry, the principal of Cary High School for 30 years, and the namesake of Dry Avenue. And on the right, Ethel Adams, who was a Cary High School teacher for many years and overseer of the famed lunch counter at the Adams drugstore. Also, Dad Dunham, who taught 40 years at Cary High School. He's the namesake of Dad Dunham Park. And his wife, Rachel, who was instrumental in founding the Cary Historical Society and the famous Cary Gourd Club. Then we had the doctors. Dr. Sam Waldo, Dr. S.P. Waldo, Cary's first doctor, and he's the grandfather of former Mayor Waldo Rood. J.M. Templeton on the right was one of Cary's best-known citizens. One of the things he did was he enlisted in World War I at the age of 62. Other doctors in the next generation include Dr. John P. Hunter, also was a Cary mayor, whose craftsman-style house and chicken coop is a Cary landmark today at 118 South Academy Street. And Dr. Frank Yarborough, also a mayor, whose house and office still stands today at 219 South Academy. Then there are others, such as Harrison Guest, the railroad master, who built the Guest Ogle House, which is the pink house, everybody's familiar with that, on Academy Street. He was the original builder. And Herb Young, longtime Cary businessman, volunteer extraordinaire, and namesake of our community center, is seen here in his Uncle Sam costume, which was a staple for many years at Cary's 4th of July celebrations. And on the right, Alfred Buck Jones, Consul General to Shanghai, China, and the namesake of Buck Jones Road. There's more Joneses. Annie Jones, Miss Annie, longtime Cary town clerk and namesake of Annie Jones Park. And on the right-hand side, Tammy Lynn Pierce. On her gravestone, it says, Cary's Angel Unaware. She passed away at age 14 and is the inspiration for today's Tammy Lynn Center. Yes, a visit to Hillcrest Cemetery is a great history lesson, but there's more to Cary history. There's the landmark Cary First Christian Church Cemetery on Cornwall Street near Glen Eyre. It's significant because of its association with Cary's first African-American religious congregation. The cemetery was established on the site where Cary's first African-American church held its first meeting in 1868. It's the only remaining resource associated with the congregation at this location. Members worshiped here for 15 years before moving into their first church building in 1883 near the present-day Cary Elementary School. But in 1968, they built and moved to their current building on Evans Road. But the nearly 1.5-acre cemetery is still owned and maintained by the church and holds approximately 260 burials. Of these, over 100 persons are buried in graves with a variety of markers. Some markers display funerary art such as cherubs, stars, fraternal organizations, and other graves are marked by simple pieces of rock and boulders with no inscriptions or are not marked at all. Through the tireless efforts of church member Sally Jones, pictured here, what a gem she is, and additional research by church volunteers and the Friends of the Page Walker, 113 people buried in unmarked graves or graves with unreadable markers have recently been identified. Some of Cary's most prominent citizens from our town's early beginnings to the present day are buried here. Among them are generations of the Arrington family. Patriarch Alfred Arrington grew up on a plantation in Warren County where he learned many trades. He was freed from slavery before the Civil War and came to Cary during the late 1860s. Both he and his son, Arch Arrington Sr., were craftsmen and became large landowners in north-central Cary. Arch Sr., the son, was one of the first African-American community leaders in Cary, and community organizing clearly ran in the family because he married Sally Blake, the sister of John Addison Blake, who was the founder of the other black congregation in Cary, the Union Bethel AME Church on North Academy Street, which is still there in its original location. Arch and Sally's son, Arch Jr., organized the African American community to build a new school for black children in 1937, and Arch Jr.'s brother and sister donated the land to the Wake County school system for the school, which was later to become Kingswood Elementary. Arch Jr. married Eliza Rogers, daughter of James Rogers, patriarch of another early Cary family, who's also buried at Cary First Christian, near his daughter Eliza, who is buried with her husband Arch in the neighboring Arrington family plot. Then there's Jenny Beckwith, Mother Jenny. Her gravestone bears one of the earliest marked death dates in the cemetery. She was the wife of John Beckwith, one of Cary's most beloved citizens of the time. The Federal Writers Project recorded his oral history as part of the Works Progress Administration in 1933, when John was 83 years old. Born in Cary, he worked as the beloved caretaker of Cary High School, known to many generations as the ringer of the Beckwith Bell, which summoned students to class and resounded throughout downtown. Unfortunately, unlike his wife Jenny, little is known about John's final resting place. It's only listed as the county graveyard on his death certificate. Our third landmark cemetery is truly a hidden gem. Tucked away in a subdivision on Tolliver Court is the White Plains Cemetery, the final resting place of Nathaniel Jones of White Plains and his family. It is the oldest historic resource in all of Cary. Nathaniel was born in 1749. He fought in the Revolutionary War, served as a Wake County Commissioner, Justice of the Peace, Sheriff, Clerk of the Court, and served in the North Carolina General Assembly. By the time of his death in 1815, he owned about half of what would later become Cary. He was twice married, and both wives are buried with him, Millicent and Rachel. He fathered 16 children, including Nancy Jones of the Nancy Jones House fame. 8 of his children are buried here in this cemetery with their parents. Forgotten for over a century and overgrown, it was rediscovered by the Jones family themselves during Cary's 100th anniversary in 1971. This began a long restoration process thanks to many volunteer hours and in consultation with experts in archaeology and architecture. Today it is cared for by the town of Cary, the Friends of the Page Walker, and by the kind neighbors who live there on Tolliver Court. Obviously, this time of year is more than a time to skulk around graveyards looking for ghouls and ghosts. It's a time to celebrate the people who have made Cary the extraordinary place that we call home. And I want to acknowledge all those listed there, and special thanks to the Friends of the Page Walker for their extensive research on Cary cemeteries. Remember, as always, to visit cary150.org for information on our sesquicentennial. But for tonight, that's it, and I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ms. Uroff. Fascinating, as always. All right, we'll move to our next item, which is the manager's update, and I'll call on Town Manager Sean Stiegel.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, as you know, Police Chief Tony Desmitz has been promoted to Public Safety Director. There she is. Tony is a real powerhouse, and with her endless tenacity and commitment to Cary, I know she's going to do a great job in her new role. As for our next chief, we're working with consultants to put together a national search process. This search is going to be more important than ever since the pool of excellent candidates is shrinking nationally. My hope is to have our next chief on board sometime this summer. Until then, I've appointed an interim chief, Terry Solt, who's also here. Terry, would you mind coming to the podium? So here's a little bit about Terry's professional career. After reaching the rank of captain in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, Terry became the chief of Gastonia, North Carolina, and then later the chief of police for Sandy Springs, Georgia. And fortunately for us, he has just retired as the chief of Hampton, Virginia. So needless to say, Cary is in good hands. Terry, would you like to say a few words?
Well, Mayor, Council, thank you for the opportunity to serve this great town. I have been in and through Cary many times, have really enjoyed how green and beautiful this city is. I never thought that I have an opportunity to serve here, but I thought I was retired, and there was a need. And frankly, I'm very dedicated to public service. And so I'm looking very much forward to working with each of you, the manager, Russ as well, and with Des as well. We've already developed a friendship. We were out in the middle of the night last night talking for over an hour, so it was really a good experience. We're looking forward to good things and just kind of holding the fort, but also exploring things that we may want to do and help the new chief on board with foundation blocks that may need to be considered going forward over the next several years. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you. Look
Welcome.
forward to working with you.
That concludes my report, Mayor.
All righty. We'll move to the third item on the agenda, which is Public Speaks Out. We've included instructions for speaking at this forum on online and printed agendas. There were 3 opportunities to participate in Public Speaks Out through written comments, calling in, or attending in person. And if you are here attending in person, I would ask that you take a seat in the rows to my right that are reserved and fill out the forms or the cards that are there for you so that our clerk will have information about you. Public Speaks Out speakers have 3 minutes each for their comments, and speakers may talk on any topic as long as it's not a public hearing, and that's to your benefit because public hearing speakers get 2 more minutes for their comments. The 3-minute time limit will be enforced to be fair to all of our speakers, not to be rude. There is a timer on the podium. It starts off with a green light, and when there's 30 seconds remaining, it'll turn to a flashing flashing yellow light, or a yellow light, and then after 30 seconds more, it will turn to a flashing red light. I think I finally got through that, stumbled right through that. So green, yellow, flashing red. And when it goes to flashing red, that's when I'm going to interrupt you again, not trying to be rude, but trying to be fair to all of our speakers. So to help have an efficient Public Speaks Out, our clerk will summarize the written comments first, and then we're going to call on remote speakers who have joined us, and this will be followed by those who are joining us in person. So right now, I'll call on right now is the time for Public Speaks Out, and I'll call on our town clerk to summarize the written comments.
We've had 3 written comments. The first from Deborah Luckadoo, who expressed desire to keep the dogwood in Cary's logo and shared that the Hardee's logo had the same star. Sarah Barrett shared her dislike of the blue and yellow in the logos and shared she associates Cary with the color green. And Satel Patel was upset about the construction noise in her area this morning and shared that she expects her neighborhood to be quiet. We had no call-in speakers, but we did have 4 people that signed up to speak prior to the meeting, and I will call them in alphabetical order.
Okay, very good.
Bharat Patel.
Thank you. First off, thank you, Mr. Mayor and the council, for the opportunity to speak here and for your continued service for Cary. It's a lovely place, and I've lived in the Woodlands since 2014, and my family and I visited Cary back in 2007, and my wife and I fell in love with the area and promised each other that we would move here, and we did about 5 years later in 2012. So with that, I'll say that I am here to speak regarding 21 REZ07, and specifically regarding the traffic and transportation matter. I knocked on the doors of all 87 homes in the Woodlands, and the signatures that you have represent 68 of those homes. And I wasn't able to get the other ones, but it was a experience to talk about this matter to all of our neighbors in the subdivision. So the original plans of the development included 2 entry points and exit points, one to Greenwood Church Road and the other to Mills Road. The plans since have changed, where the Green Level Church Road entry and exit are no longer going to be happening. And so the reason why we feel that this is going to be a concern for us are 3. First, it's going to cause a congestion issue at Timber Mist and Mills Road. Secondly, due to the length of Mills Road, is going to cause a congestion issue at Mills Road and Green Level Church. And thirdly, the plans for the expansion of Green Level Church Road currently include our main entrance becoming a right turn only. And so If that happens, it's going to further compound the issues of number 1 and number 2 that I just mentioned. So our ask is simple, and that is to please either 1 or 2. 1, put the plans back in place for the entry and exit for the new development onto Green Level Church, or update the plans for the expansion of Green Level Church to allow the left turn to be allowed at Ashley Rose. And again, without having all of the subdivision presented here behind me, the signatures that you have in front of you represent their concerns there as stated here and in the documents that you have. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patel.
And Mr. Patel also submitted his written comments in your packets. The next speaker is Wilma Slade, who also submitted comments and exhibits that are included within your packet.
Council members, my name is Wilma Slade, and I live at the Woodlands subdivision. After spending 35 years in the Air Force, I retired and was faced with where to live. I was born and raised on a farm just 90 miles from here, and I knew I'd come back to North Carolina. I'm a small-town girl who likes to live quiet, but close to all the amenities a large city offers. I chose Cary because of its proximity to the Research Triangle and universities, and because it's a large city with a small-town feel, and because it's friendly and safe. I absolutely love my home and have lived here for 10 years. But no matter where you live, there will be unknowns. My first unknown is the ditch drainage system. Every time there's a heavy rain, I hold my breath and pray my ditch does not flood. The stormwater team has worked extremely close with me to minimize the impact to my property. And because they're familiar with the drainage issue throughout the Woodlands, they will have this as a reference point as they review the applicant's development plan to make sure additional drainage is not diverted from the subdivision to the Woodlands. My second unknown is that a small street, Mills Road, separates me from the county line. The rules are different for dirt bike and ATV riding in the county, so living quiet has proven to be a greater challenge because Mills Road is wooded, secluded, and the area just off the paved road is considered county. Riders use Green Level Church Road to access Mills Road and have used it as their playground for the 9 years I've been in my home. I've undergone 3 major surgeries. It was confined to my home, each time wondering, will it be quiet today or will the riders be on Mills Road? I've worked closely with the police, the sheriff's, DOT. I know this is an enforcement issue, but the riders have largely avoided the authorities. We're hoping maybe with the presence of the new subdivision with sidewalks and maybe bicycle lanes and soft speed humps, that will deter, hopefully, the dirt bike and ATV riders. We wanted the applicant to be aware of this problem, so when they consider and work with transportation and DOT, that when they are expanding that section of Mills Road, they'll take these kinds of issues under consideration. Also, the applicant is already exceeding LOD requirements for Green Level Church Road and Mills Road, but many of the homes along Mills Road have families that have outdoor living areas, so we're hoping they'll consider that and maybe come up with some non-temporary buffers to help with some of the construction activity. Just a couple of seconds. I need to thank Ms. Virginia. I need to thank Ms. Redling from Planning and Zoning. All of these people worked tirelessly with us at the Woodlands to make sure that we understand the process. Also, Lisa Booz from Stormwater and Ms. Needinghouse from DOT. I mean, they've spent quite a bit of time with us. Mr. Conda from Transportation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Robert Skoll.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name's Robert Skull at 327 East Park Street here in Cary. My wife and I like living in Cary, but we're concerned that many of our neighbors are being driven out of the city. The cost of renting downtown has shot way up. One neighbor was hit with a 50% rent increase in August. Last week, a house that sold for $270,000 with an updated bathroom, new floors, and new roof in 2018 was nonetheless bulldozed. Dozens of affordable units downtown have been replaced by housing that was designed for the affluent. When I spoke in April, I said I liked some of the ideas in the 2020 Affordable Housing Plan and asked how much of that plan had actually been accomplished by 2020. You've put me in touch with a staff person who was very helpful. She tried to present a positive accounting for what had been done since the 2020 plan was written. But when I asked about specific items, it became clear that very little of it had actually been implemented. For this reason, she advocated I focus on the 2040 plan, expressing reserved optimism. I also learned that no one has been hired to replace her in her original role as the community block grant manager. I'm not sure if that may not be current information. Since that time, I've noticed that many more people have spoken in favor of affordable housing. I liked it when 15 affordable units were approved by a 4-3 vote for a development in July. But 15 out of 285 units is a rate of about 5%, hardly adequate for the increasing demand for workforce housing and increasing job vacancies. Cary received some positive TV publicity stating plans for rental housing near downtown, in which half the units are going to be offered someday at below market value. I hope this actually happens, but it isn't on the very busy city development map yet. I understand this takes time. And I was a bit disappointed when I read a blog post last week, I guess it was last month, that ridiculed the most recent speaker for pitching a Wake One mantra and throwing money at a complex problem. The correct name of the organization is One Wake. There are over 40 affiliate churches and synagogues and charitable organizations in One Wake. I do not belong to any of these institutions, but in my opinion, One Wake is absolutely correct that plans are more likely to be implemented
Mr. Skull,
if they are included in the
I
budget.
have to interrupt you. Your time has expired.
My time has expired. Okay, well, thank you for the time.
If you have your comments in writing, if you give them to the clerk, she'll make sure we get a copy.
Can I send them to you?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our last speaker that registered before the meeting was Bruce Forster Wodovic.
Thank you for the opportunity. I want to talk a bit about response to COVID. It's time to end all the fear associated with the COVID virus. The fear has caused a multitude of problems, from increased suicides and domestic abuse to thousands of business closings and millions of people losing their jobs. Early on, no one knew what path the virus would take. However, now we have much more information. Yet some, like CNN, Dr. Fauci, and Governor Cooper's office, continue to push much of the same narratives we've heard for a long time, which has proven to be no longer valid or perhaps never was. For those 70 and those that are immunocompromised, COVID should be taken seriously. Fortunately for them, it has been recently shown that therapeutics like monoclonal antibodies and hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, along with zinc, are effective treatments. For those under 70, the truth is that the death rate of the coronavirus is about the same as a bad flu. The actual death rate for school-age kids is 0.000027. For an otherwise healthy youth, the chance of dying with the COVID They have a greater chance of dying of being struck by lightning than being killed by the COVID. Masks don't make a difference. There's been proven with many studies, both in the US and Europe, as well as one including 90,000 school kids in Georgia. Lockdowns don't work. If you look at the country, states, and cities where there have been the most draconian lockdowns, afterwards there's the much greater rate of infection. The vaccine is not what was promised. After 6 months, the efficacy rate of the vaccine now stands at 25%, which is why they're pushing for boosters. What's more, as of October 8th, the CDC's VAERS database, which continually understates issues, shows that there's almost 800,000 adverse reactions. That includes 25,000 individuals who were permanently disabled and 17,000 that died from the vaccine. By the way, while kids are virtually exempt from dying from the virus, they are not exempt from adverse events from the vaccine. So where do we go from here? First, I encourage everybody to put their faith in Jesus Christ rather than a mask or a vaccine. Next, I believe that we should follow the lead of Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and many other countries which have all lifted their restrictions. They have realized COVID's new realities. Also, most of their citizens have either been vaccinated or recovered from the COVID, gaining a robust natural immunity. In short, these countries have just resolved that their people need to get on with life. As such, I call for the Council to do its part to eliminate the fear associated with the virus, specifically end the pointless mask mandate. Don't require or shame those not comfortable taking the jab to get the jab. Help businesses get back on a sound footing.
Sorry to have to interrupt you. Your time has expired. If you would like to leave written comments with the clerk, she'll be glad to give us a copy.
If I might say, we all just need to take a deep, maskless breath and get on with life. Thank you.
Any other speakers?
We have no other speakers registered to speak.
All right, thank you. We'll now move to our fourth item.
See if there's anybody here that's not registered to speak.
Yes.
Okay.
Is anybody here that would like to speak at Public Speaks Out that hasn't? Yes, please come forward. Thank you, Don.
Good evening.
Sorry about that.
Hey, I've been overlooked many, many times. I was once introduced as Mr. Joy Pike, so this is no slight whatsoever. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Stegall, and ladies and gentlemen of the Cary Town Council. My name is Dan Pike, and my wife, Joy, and I are 25-year residents of downtown Cary. This evening, I'm here to quickly discuss three things. Unfortunately, present speakers not included, we're in a time where there's so much negativity being spouted by people, and there's very little expressions of appreciation, gratitude, and thanks. It's unbelievable how nasty some people get and have gotten on seemingly insignificant things. That really frustrates me, and I really, really hate it. First, I'm here to tell you all thank you very much for all you're doing for the citizens of Cary. I may not agree with all of your specific actions, but I appreciate you and respect you as a group and individually, and I know that you always have our best interest at heart. Keep up the good work, and I look forward to all the great things to come. Second, I'm here to applaud and tout the efforts of the Public Works team that handles the events in Cary. I am the current president of the board of the Cary Downtown Farmers Market, and we recently had our Farmers Fall Festival, and as always, the Public Works team was there first thing in the morning to set up the stage, picnic tables, hook up the food trucks, and place trash cans, just to name a few things. They monitored the event to make sure trash cans were emptied and ice was available to our beer garden. At the end of the event, they came in like an army to dismantle all they had set up and to make sure all was cleaned up, so it looked like an event with over 5,000 participants never happened on Chatham Street. This is an amazing group of town employees that are a key contributor to each and every event that the town of Cary holds. And I just wanted to recognize and publicly thank them for all their hard work and dedication to the citizens of Cary. Oh, and by the way, they always do their work with a smile on their face and are willing to do whatever is necessary to make the event a success. We are so fortunate to have such a great group supporting the town's events. Lastly, on behalf of the board, vendors, and patrons of the Cary Downtown Farmers Market, I want to sincerely thank you, the council, along with Susan Moran and our awesome town liaison, Ryan O'Quinn. Through the pandemic, everyone has provided us great insight and information to make decisions and put protocols in place that has allowed us not to miss a single Saturday since COVID started. With our relationship, we are able to provide our amazing town with the weekly farmers market, and for that, we are exceptionally grateful. We all truly look forward to moving to the farmers market to the Cary Downtown Park when it's completed, and we strongly feel it will be mutually beneficial to all involved. In conclusion, thank you all, and know that all is not only you, but the entire staff of the town of Cary. You are greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pike. Is there anyone else in attendance that would like to speak at Public Speaks Out? Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, good evening, I should say, Mr. Mayor, distinguished council members. My name is Robert Gaddison. I live at 204 Great Lake Drive in Cary, which is over in the Preston Village area. I'm here to speak on item 5.4, the rezoning request.
Public hearing?
That's a public hearing.
That's a public hearing. We'll call on you when we get to that. I'll call on you first, and you'll get 5 minutes instead of 3.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, perfect. Anyone else to speak at Public Speaks Out? All right, we'll close Public Speaks Out, and we now move to the consent agenda. For the benefit of people watching our meeting on TV or streaming, I'll take a moment to review the consent agenda items. Please keep in mind that one vote approves all of these items. On the consent agenda, we have T-Mobile South LLC license agreements, 20 REZ 11, 3890 North Carolina 55 Highway rezoning, fiscal year 2021 annual utility reimbursements, 21 REZ 07 Mills residential rezoning, bid award for the Morrisville Parkway and Stevenson Smith, fiscal year 2021 transportation development fee reimbursements. Would council members like any of these items pulled for discussion?
Some citizens in the Woodlands neighborhood reached out to me and requested my assistance in pulling 21 REZ 07, please.
Okay. We'll pull 21 REZ 07,
Yes.
and we'll talk about that during discussion. Any other items to be pulled? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve all consent items except 21 REZ 07.
I'll make that motion,
All right?
as noted.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. All right, we now move to public hearings. Our first public hearing is 5.1, proposed new council district boundaries map. And Attorney Lisa Glover will introduce the item. No action is needed tonight, and this item will return to us at the November 9th meeting for action. Ms. Glover.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We're here again tonight to talk about redistricting. As a reminder, redistricting is required by state law and governed by constitutional principles. When electoral districts are used, as they are in Cary, each district must be substantially equal in population so that every person's vote counts about the same. In January, we hired an independent, nonpartisan team to assist staff with the redistricting process. In March, Council established guiding principles for creating the 4 council districts. Normally, census data would be received in March. However, release of the data was delayed this year, and it was not available in time to redistrict for our normal October election. As permitted by state law, our consultants used pre-census data to draw new districts. You held a public hearing in May and adopted new electoral districts in June. 4 days after that vote, Governor Cooper signed Senate Bill 722 into law, which changed the election landscape. Senate Bill 722 delays every municipal district election, except for Raleigh, to March of 2022, so that new census data could be reviewed and incorporated into revised districts. The law requires a public input opportunity and a public hearing on any revised district map. If new districts are adopted by November 17th, candidate filing will begin December the 6th. So in August, our consultant team received and reviewed the 2020 census data and determined that the districts adopted in June needed some tweaking. They began drafting new map options using the map adopted in June as the base. You reviewed 2 new map options in September and asked staff to bring both options forward to a public hearing. Staff then began a public education campaign, including social media alerts, inclusion in town email messages, and an updated website. Options 1 and 2 are identical in their treatment of districts A and D. The only difference between the 2 options is on the edges of districts B and C. As outlined here in option 1, 2 precincts north of Southwest Cary Parkway between Old Apex Road and Kildare Farm Road would be located in District B, and 2 precincts near US 1 and Walnut Street would be located in District C. In option 2, those sets of precincts swap districts. With all options, the population of each district stays within plus or minus 5% of the ideal district population, thus satisfying the one person, one vote constitutional test. After tonight's public hearing, this item will return to you November the 9th for a final vote. The new map will be forwarded to the boards of elections, and candidate filing would begin December 6th with the election on March the 8th. This concludes staff's presentation. Susan Moran and I are available for any questions you have after the public hearing.
All right, thank you. There were 3 opportunities to participate in this public hearing through written comments, calling in, or attending in person. Those instructions were posted on the public notice, online agenda, and printed agenda. To have an efficient public meeting, we're going to call on the clerk to summarize the written comments, then hear from remote speakers, and that'll be followed by those who signed up to speak in person and those who did not sign up to speak in person. So I'll open the public hearing from item 5.1, propose new council districts boundary maps, and call on our clerk for the written comments first.
We had 3 written comments submitted. John Russell wrote in and questioned the borders of the district and liked the shape District D when it had the natural border of NC 55. And Rita Patil shared support for option 1. Marla Dorrell shared support for option 1.
Okay, thank you. And then do we have remote speakers?
No remote speakers and no one signed up to speak.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak at this public hearing? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing, and as Ms. Glover said, this will come back to us on November 9th for a vote at that time. I'll open it up to council members for comments or questions. All right, very good.
But I think there's one comment, and that is
Okay.
the stuff remains on file so citizens can look at it and they can always bring feedback.
Yes,
Yeah.
so the website is still up, and it tells people how to
Wanted to-
contact and make comments, yes.
All right, very good. We now move to our second public hearing, item 5.2, which is 21A13 Dole annexation. Principal Planner Anna Redling will introduce the item. Council may take action. Ms. Redling.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request for annexation of .83 of an acre of property located north of Chapel Hill Road in eastern Cary and adjacent to I-40. The .83 acre includes the .56 acre site located at the corner of Blanche Drive and Azalea Drive, and .27 acre of intervening area, which in this case is the area within the adjacent right-of-way of Azalea Drive. The area is contiguous to Cary's corporate limits and within the ETJ. The property is zoned residential 12. The owners wish to construct 2 detached dwellings connected to Cary utilities, each on a separate lot within the area requested for annexation. There is no development plan approval associated with this annexation. An exempt subdivision plat has been recorded depicting the 2 new lots. The property must be annexed into Cary prior to connecting 2 utilities. Following the public hearing, council may take action on this request, and this concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Redling. All right, at this time, I'll call on the clerk to hear of any written comments.
No written comments, no virtual speakers, nor anybody signed up to speak.
Okay. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak at this public hearing? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and open it up to the council for questions, comments, or a motion.
Make a motion to approve annexation 21A13.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Redley.
Thank you.
We now move to our third public hearing, which is item 5.3, 21A01 Apollo USA LLC annexation. Associate Planning Director Deborah Grannon will introduce the item. No action will be taken tonight. Ms. Grannon.
Thank you. Good evening, Council. This is a request to annex approximately 5 parcels on 29.5 acres. The assemblage is located west of NC 55 Highway and north of Howard Road. It includes 2.7 acres of intervening area in the NC 55 Highway right-of-way. The subject property is contiguous to Cary's corporate limits. The property is in Cary's ETJ, and it's zoned R40. It's also part of the Alston Activity Center concept plan that you approved in 2006 that entitled the property for townhomes. There's an associated development plan for 91 townhomes, so that's consistent with the zoning. And annexation is required as part of the development plan approval. So if the development plan complies with all the LDO requirements, including annexation, it can be approved administratively. Now, Ms. Redling just talked to you about a proposed public hearing and annexation, which you did take action on. This one's just a little bit different, because when we reached out to other departments at the town, the fire department let us know that there were some structures on Howard Road that were greater than 1,000 feet from a fire hydrant. And we also heard from our Public Works Department, who indicated that there was concerns about solid waste pickup because Howard Road did not meet Cary standards and there was no turnaround. So as part of the development plan process, they're proposing Cary roads to meet our standards and to demolish the existing dwellings. So we want to wait until those dwellings are demolished and any debris is removed. And once that's completed, and we've been in communication with the property owner on this, once that's all completed, we'll come back to you for action at a later date. So this concludes staff's presentation, and I'm available for your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Grannon. Now it's time for a public hearing for 21A01 Apollo USA LLC annexation, and I'll call on our clerk for written comments, remote comments, and those who are calling in.
No written comments or remote comments, or no one signed up to speak beforehand.
Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak at this public hearing? Seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and open it up to council members for questions or comments.
I have none.
All right, we'll see this at a later date. Thank you, Ms. Grannon. We now move to our fourth public hearing, 20 REZ06 Carpenter Village PDD Amendment Parcel K. Planning Manager Katie Dry will introduce the item. Council will not take action on this item, on this rezoning tonight, but it will be referred to our Planning and Zoning Board for their review and recommendation, and will return to the council at a future date. Ms. Dry.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is a request to amend the Carpenter Village Plan Development District, specifically for Parcel K. The site is at the intersection of Lewis Stevens Drive and Morrisville Parkway. It totals 5.91 acres. The property is across the street from Carpenter Elementary School, just south of the Western Regional Library, and adjacent to the Lake Ridge Preston Village development. As you can see from this street view image, the site is currently undeveloped. It's vacant at this time. The Carpenter Village Plan Development District was originally approved in 1996. It's a 400-acre plan development district, which includes over 1,000 residential units, a mix of non-residential uses including office and institutional, commercial, open space, as well as other institutional uses such as a school and library. The subject site, which is Parcel K of the Carpenter Village PDD, is currently designated for retail uses. According to Cary's GIS maps, the site is impacted by floodplain and stream buffers along the eastern property line. Field determination of these features will occur at the time of development plan review. There are presently no overhead utility lines along the site's frontage on Lewis Stevens Drive or Morrisville Parkway, and per the LDO, all utility lines are required to be installed underground. And detailed plans for utility installation will be prepared during the development plan review process in coordination with Duke Energy. As noted, the current entitlement for this site is for retail uses. There are no size limitations other than a height restriction for 1 story. Current building materials that are with the approval for the current site include materials that could be brick, sandstone, or wood clapboard. The proposed zoning would allow for office uses. They would set a size maximum of 50,000 square feet. The building height maximum could be 50 feet, which could be between 3 to 4 stories. With the revised PDD for the office building, the applicants are proposing to follow the Community Appearance Manual. And regarding the building materials, the Community Appearance Manual was created in 2003. In Carpenter Village, which was originally approved in 1996 and amended in 2001 to add Parcel K, which is the subject site. So the applicant's commitment to follow the Community Appearance Manual will be placing more restrictive architectural requirements than the previously approved architectural requirements. The PDD master plan indicates access points will be onto Lewis Stevens Drive via a shared access with the Western Regional Library to the north. The plan reflects a street-side trail along Morrisville Parkway and the Wake County Library Greenway corridor along the eastern edge. In addition to the street-side trail and greenway, which are reflected on the master plan, the Parks Recreation and Cultural Resources master plan shows a grade-separated crossing of Morrisville Parkway to the south at this location. Additionally, the Hatcher Grove Greenway is proposed to connect at the northeastern corner of the site. And Greenway easement dedication is required for these other Greenway corridors during the development plan review process. The request is for office development. The applicants have proposed that if the site were to develop as medical office, then they would propose a 25% parking increase of 1 space per 200 square feet of building. In comparison, the LDO proposes 1 space per 250 square feet for medical office buildings. The PDD is proposing community gathering area to be developed per the LDO, which would be 1,200 square feet for this site. A traffic study was completed, which evaluated 50,000 square feet of medical office uses. The traffic study identified improvements at 1 of the 11 study intersections within 1 mile of the site. The improvements are related to turn lanes at the intersection of NC 55 and Morrisville Parkway, indicated here with a red triangle. The improvements have not been offered for completion by the applicant. There will be additional coordination with NCDOT, Cary staff, and the applicant related to improvements for the site. Staff has completed a review preliminarily of this site with the Imagine Cary Community Plan. We found that policies that are applicable come from the Work, Shape, Engage, and Move chapters. We find that the case is applicable to Work Policy 1 and 5. The intent of Policy 1 is to facilitate the continued growth of the town's local economy by ensuring that our businesses have access to the type of diverse labor force and professional talent that meets their changing needs over time. An office building may also further the intent of Policy 5, which speaks towards attracting new high-value businesses that provide a high quality of life. The Future Growth Framework Map, which is found in the Shape chapter, designates the site to be within the mixed neighborhood development category. Mixed neighborhoods are a residential development category. They're generally located in the northwestern part of Cary and generally within 2 miles of the Research Triangle Park. The mixed neighborhood designation states that limited amounts of small format non-residential uses can be appropriate along the edges of residential areas. We do note that this site is at the edge of a neighborhood. It's at the intersection of two thoroughfares. The proposed size of 50,000 square feet would struggle to comply with the guidance for small format as the plan describes. Staff also notes that the current entitlement for retail uses currently contains no square footage limitations. However, there is some building form limitation with the current entitlement. It limits the size of the current building to 1 story. Looking at shape policy 6, this speaks to transitions. The intent of this policy is to provide for harmonious transitions between different types of land uses. And staff's observations are the site does have a natural buffer along the eastern property line due to floodplain and stream buffers. The site is proposing to build streetscapes per the LDO requirements. The building height is taller than the current entitlement of 1 story. However, we do note that the site is also located at the edge of a mixed neighborhood and at the intersection of two thoroughfares. According to the transportation plan, both Morrisville Parkway and Lewis Stevens Drive are 4-lane thoroughfares. And a neighborhood meeting was held remotely in August of 2020. 29 attendees participated in the meeting. They had questions and concerns over access points along Morrisville Parkway, pedestrian and bicycle travel, safety, traffic, and stormwater considerations. And since the site was posted for public hearing notice, we've received 4 emails. There's been additional emails associated with the public hearing comments tonight, which will be shared following this presentation. Notice of public hearing on the proposed rezoning was mailed to property owners within 800 feet of the site, published on the town's website, and posted on the subject property. This exceeds the minimum mandated by state law and the land development ordinance. This concludes my presentation. The applicant's representative is here to share comments, and following that in the public hearing, I'm available for your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dry.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Jason Barron with Morningstar Law Group. Excited to be here tonight on behalf of this application. I'm here on behalf of not only the owners, but also Kimberly Development Group. You might not have heard of them. I think this is their first foray into Cary. I've worked with Chad Stelmach of Kimberly Development Group for years. They've got a well-established reputation in this market for delivering what I would consider Class A neighborhood-oriented style office space. So if you drive down, if you're familiar with the Six Forks corridor as you head north of North Hills, just before you get to Sandy Forks, there's 3 kind of office buildings right there on the right-hand side. I worked with Chad on those a few years ago, and he envisions this site to operate in a similar fashion, although a little bit different, and I'll explain why I believe that difference exists. Mr. I's done a great job of describing the nature of the request. It's roughly a 5-acre parcel seeking to do 50,000 square feet of office uses on the site. It's the rare occasion that I get to stand up in front of you and tell you that we would like to do office as opposed to something else. Typically, I'm arguing the other way around. But so I'm really happy to be here on behalf of a client who sees an opportunity with respect to this site to develop office, believes there's a strong market for it, especially on the medical office side. Now, we have opened it up to a variety of uses. A 50,000 square foot building between 3 and 4 stories. There's going to be a number of different tenants in this building, but in this location, Chad believes there's going to be a really strong appetite and a strong market for medical office uses in this location. A couple of things I want to point out with respect to the site, and I've got up in front of you the PD master plan. I believe this is a great location for a use of this type. We believe it's consistent with the Cary Community Plan. As noted, these uses are appropriate at the edge of the mixed neighborhood designation, and this is certainly that. Although, again, this is a little bit different because what the Cary Community Plan calls for is small format uses of this type. Now, if you think about if this were to be a 4-story building, it would be roughly a 12,500 square foot floor plate, which is not a huge floor plate. And then if you look at the aerial, there are very large-scale uses immediately adjacent to it. And so while I understand the kind of the general policy designation associated with having smaller floor plate or smaller footprint office uses in this mixed use or in the mixed neighborhood designation, I think it would be somewhat foolish to kind of look myopically at that terminology and ignore the built environment, because the built environment has very large scale, very large footprint uses that when you develop a 12,500 square foot office footprint, it's not going to stand out. It's not going to feel out of the ordinary, and it's going to meet the market for this type of use. And it's located at the intersection of two major thoroughfares. So it's not like these are residential streets that we're talking about. So this is going to be a major thoroughfare intersection next to a library, across the street from a school. And so I don't think this is something that, taken in totality, is going to feel like it sticks out given kind of where the location is. Further, as noted, the site is also very well buffered, and Mr. I touched on that. To the east of the site, so where there is residential adjacent to the site, there's a creek that essentially serves as the eastern boundary of the property, and there's a natural buffer that's created between the uses. So again, where there is residential adjacent to the site, there's a natural buffer that will separate the uses, that will provide for the appropriate type of transition between this use and the adjacent uses. I understand that there are concerns related to height from folks in the community. I've seen some of the emails that you all have received. And again, I just don't think at the end of the day, a 50-foot tall building with the adjacent uses that exist on the ground that are out there is going to feel out of the ordinary. I don't think this is, it's not tucked into the middle of a neighborhood. This isn't at the front of a neighborhood. It's at the intersection of two major thoroughfares adjacent to a library and across the street from a school. So I'll keep my comments brief. I'm here to answer any questions. I'm optimistic this is a project that will move forward in an expeditious fashion, and look forward to the feedback that you all have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barron. Now's the time for the public hearing for 20 RZ06 Carpenter Village PDD amendment. Before I call Mr. Gadsden back up, I'm going to call on the town clerk to summarize the written comments, call on remote speakers, and then I'll have Mr. Gadsden come back up.
We had 5 submitted comments. Cassandra Ackerson shared that she was opposed to rezoning because it's not consistent with the existing land uses in their neighborhood and had traffic concerns. Tom and Alicia Gordon requested that the height and the square footage be limited to reasonable amounts. Christian Hasty requested the original zoning be kept, as she shared comments about the height of the building and traffic. Reed Overton voiced his opinion against the proposal due to the negative impact on the view and the family feel in the area. Ann Horton shared her opposition to the rezoning due to the height of the proposal and traffic concerns in the area.
Okay.
No call-in speakers.
All right. Mr. Gadsden, would you like to return? Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Again, my name is Robert Gaddison. I'm a retired federal law enforcement executive with the Department of Homeland Security, as well as U.S. Customs Service Office of Investigations. I retired in 2004 and moved to Cary, North Carolina. I was also in Atlanta, Georgia, which North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Virginia were part of my region. I picked Cary because it was the type of neighborhood that I want, an area that I wanted to live in and retire in. A couple things. I've lived here for 16 years, okay? I've watched this neighborhood develop. I've watched Morrisville Parkway expand from 55 all the way up to Chapel Hill Road. This is a community. This is a neighborhood. There are schools there, as you can see. There's a library there. There's actually 2 schools there. There's tennis courts down the street. This is not an area for a commercial building. This is our neighborhood. We have walking trails there, as well as other activities that take place in and around this area. Now, they talk about this being 2 major thoroughfares. Yes, Morrisville Parkway is a major thoroughfare. Not Louis Stevens, it is not. And again, I've lived here, I'm now going to keep this brief. I've lived here for 16 years, and I am a current member of the Lake Ridge Board of Directors. So I'm also here representing them. I don't know if there's anyone here from Preston Village. but I would think they would be opposed to this commercial building going up in this area as well. This is a neighborhood. This is not a place for a commercial building. Thank you very much. Please
Thank
take that into consideration when you determine your outcome for this area.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
No other registered speakers.
Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak at this public hearing? Please.
Point of order, I did submit written comments. May I still speak?
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. My name is Cassandra Atkinson, and you've received my remarks. I'm new to Cary. I'm a native North Carolinian. Grew up in Johnston County. Moved to Heritage Pines, which is probably 2 miles or so from the site that we are discussing tonight. We have Green Hope High School. We have Carpenter Elementary School. We have the library. And what Ms. Dry, who did an excellent job, did not mention is that we also have, opposite the corner where the yellow area is, there's a new townhouse community that's scheduled to open sometime in 2022, I believe. And so that's going to add traffic, and then there's an office building going up. We are a community. I grew up in North Carolina. I'm a Pac-Tar Pac. And I moved to Cary because I recognize good planning. I recognize the need to serve your population with greenways, bikeways, and that's what I came to Cary for. This changes or increases the mixed-use aspect of Cary to a greater density that's going to cause great congestion, traffic. We've got children leaving school. They bike in the area. This is not a compatible use of this space. It would be the first office building in that area, and we should not set that precedent. I think on Highway 55, UNC Medical Health is down the street. Those are better corridors for business activity. We are a residential community, as Mr. Gaddison said. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Any other speakers here, or any other people in attendance that would like to speak at this public hearing? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. And before I open it up to council members, one of the questions I have for Mr. Barron, well, maybe not a question, maybe more of a statement, is I would like to do the balloon test. If we could float a balloon and go to each one of the surrounding neighborhoods and see what we see. That would really help me get a grip on the height. Also, of course, detailed information about any traffic studies we've had in the area. Traffic with what could go there today as opposed to this development, those types of things would be what I would be looking for. And I'll open it up to my colleagues. Yes.
Okay, yeah, I have several questions, Mr. My first question really has to do with the existing land use right now, existing zoning.
Correct.
You said that it was retail with a limitation to 1 story. What are the types of retail that could go in there?
So the current entitlement just says retail. So what we would do is we as staff, we would look at our table of permitted uses, and any of the use types that would be generally classified as retail could be potentially allowed there.
Okay, I don't mean to put you on a spot when you haven't had a chance to really study that, but out of curiosity, could a pharmacy go there?
I believe pharmacy could go there, yes.
Could a gas station go there?
I believe so. I would like to verify that as a follow-up, but I believe it could, yes.
Okay, I think that will play a big decision, make a big difference in my decision on this site, on this rezoning, because it's already zoned for something, it hasn't been developed as something, but there are some uses that might be permissible that I actually think are worse for our community, and I live in Preston Village too, by the way, and Lori lived there for 20-some years. How many?
23.
23, she just moved, but we still love her. Yeah, but anyway, that would make a big difference to me because I agree with you. I think it's really tenuous when you have a certain use next to the elementary school and near the library, but if it's a gas station or a pharmacy that could go in there, that would be worse to me. So I'll be looking at what the current zoning is and weigh that against this one, because it may be that this one is not great, but it's better than what could be built today. So that would, be important to me. I do think that the height thing it's a good idea to float the balloon. It's going to show that if you live in a lot of the surrounding area, you can see that balloon, because the topography is so high. Yeah. Very high there. It's really, really high.
And that's what I want to see. I mean, I'm not going to see a little bit or a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, and what I would say is, if we're concerned about the height for appearance reasons, then we need to be asking for conditions that address aesthetics, that make sure that this looks attractive, and maybe they can offer some to us that we say, okay, it gives us peace of mind that this is going to look okay in our community. The second question I have, and that's really my biggest question, I think my opinion on this rezoning is going to be predicated on what you find out and what you can share with us. But the other one has to do with the greenway, because in the greenway map that you showed, I don't know if you can bring it back up, it shows that it runs along that buffer, goes, I assume, under the bridge and over to that other undeveloped parcel to the south there. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, Katie, am I looking at that correctly? Like, that would go under, not over the bridge, right? Like, we wouldn't be doing a pedestrian crossing at the bridge.
Correct, it'd be a grade separated crossing.
Okay, so grade separate under, but the applicant is proposing an alternative route for the greenway?
Oh, the applicant's proposing the street side trail. They would be required to dedicate any easements to facilitate that connection to the south. But
Okay.
they're not proposing to build that connection to the south. But they would be
Okay.
required to do the easements.
Okay, so it doesn't take away this connection, this future connection. Would they be building it up to to the edge of their property so that when it comes time to go under the bridge? Or do they just dedicate the easement and then we're responsible for paying for that little segment of trail?
I can look into that. I know that that's typically worked out during the time of development plan review, but I can see if there's any more certainty we can.
Okay, yeah, I just didn't know, like, if we're taking in conditions and they're saying, hey, this is what we're going to do, it'd be helpful for us to make sure that we're not taking on an expense that normally that would be borne by the developer. So, those are my big questions.
Other questions? Yes.
I have a couple of questions as you're making your list when you come back to answer Councilmember Robinson's questions. I'd really be interested in what the traffic impact would be comparing a 50,000 square foot office to the variety of retail type that's already allowed by right. Because I think that might influence us as well, understanding what those different traffic impacts might be. It seems to me just, and I'm not a traffic engineer, but would love to be, is that there would be a much bigger traffic impact for something like a pharmacy and, gas station, et cetera, rather than an office building, and I'd love to know what that difference is. I'd also be interested, as the applicant starts to look at this, to me, having lived there for 20 plus years, it is at the height. It's right there on the corner and it's tall, and everything else is single story. There's along those corners. Now, granted, there's going to be townhomes across the street, but they're pretty far away. And I'd really be interested in what that will feel like, going from a 5-story to all the buildings around it being single story. And so I think that might
I think it's 3 to 4 stories, right? Not 5 stories?
Sorry, is it 3 to 4 stories?
Yes.
Okay. Then I like the 3 side of 3 to 4.
And what is the zoning, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
what is the zoning for the land to the south that's undeveloped? What is that zoned for? Is that also in the Carpenter PDD, or is that separate?
It's actually, it's outside of the Carpenter PDD. It's zoned RMF directly to the south, which is residential multifamily, so it could allow.
That won't be single story.
Right, they start-
That will not be single story.
No, but they've started that work already, so. yeah.
Well, they're not prepping that site on the east yet. Yeah, they're only doing the land to the west, but.
Right, on the west side.
Yeah, but the land to the east is so small, it's less likely to be townhomes, right?
It's also higher than across the street as well, so it might balance out, but I think the balloon will certainly help.
Yeah.
Just to add to the list of information that you're going to provide to us, I keep hearing that everything around is 1 story, and the school might be 1 story, but what's the actual height of the building? The library might be 1 story, but what's the actual height of the building? Because I know it's a lot taller than your typical one-story building.
That's a very fair
you know,
point.
So I'd like to better understand that as well. My other questions, Ms. Robinson asked very eloquently. I was concerned also what are the existing uses that could be allowed today? And I will echo the comments that if this is what's or better than what can be built today, then yeah, that's obviously going to influence where I go on this one.
Any other comments?
Well, I agree with what Don just said and what Ms. Robinson had said. My only concern is the height. I just don't want it to be something that is really out of scale with the rest of the neighborhood. And I think balloon or whatever we do to determine that would be very helpful.
Okay.
It might be helpful, too, if the applicant wants to put together any three-dimensional renderings, because
Absolutely.
it is true that if it's 12,500 square foot footprint, that's not huge. So sometimes the scale of a building isn't as bad when you see it rendered out. I mean, I don't know, but if I was the applicant, I'd probably be doing that.
Any other comments?
So the residential units on the east are the only residential units, right, that are adjacent to this parcel? Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, directly to the north is the library, and then across the street to the west is the school.
And what's the distance between the proposed parcel, the building, with the residential units?
Hasn't been determined, right? The location of the building's not determined. Yeah, we're
But
not.
they'll keep, yeah, but I mean, they'll stay off of it for some distance because of the greenway, so there's, like, you know that he And the can't go stream any buffer. closer. Yeah, and we don't usually pull our buildings up to the road, so it's unlikely that parking would be at the road.
Yes, and I can get the dimensions and prepare that moving forward. But there is, correct, a fairly wide stream buffer that separates the two uses.
Thank you.
And
That
parking.
might be a great bit of information to know is how wide is the proposed, or is the stream buffer, so what is the closest the building
Yeah.
could possibly be, so that we'd understand that.
Yeah, I think that'd be
And then put
helpful.
and then put the balloon there.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
It's further out,
Yeah.
so the height might be okay.
Yep.
You know, when we acquired this parcel for the Wake County Library, I envisioned the library building overlooking that, there's like wetlands and trees. I was picturing like you stand in the library and you look out these windows and it's going to be so beautiful. And then because our standards are to put the parking off of the road, they brought the building up. And it was just so disappointing. You know, like, it was one of those times where our good intentions got in the way of something great, because instead of having this building with big windows overlooking this beautiful wetlands, it overlooks the street, so, and parking. So it was kind of disappointing.
Okay. The process here, I want to make sure, by the way, thank you so much for caring enough about your community to come in and see us in person. That really means a lot. So the process is, so we had a public hearing tonight, and what we're going to do is forward this to our planning and zoning board, and what they're going to do, they're a group of citizens we appointed, and they're going to review it and see how it matches the Cary Community Plan, which staff talked about a little bit this evening. And then they're going to make a recommendation. During all of that time, and then it'll come back to us, and during all that time, we'll be receiving comments, information from the applicant, anything else we can get, so that when we do see this, and it's usually like 3 months, 4 months down the road, we'll have all this information to make a decision. You did hear tonight about the current use, and I think I want to emphasize that point. That is what is allowed to be built today without any council action. They could pull a permit tomorrow, well, that would be really fast, but they could pull a permit and start building, there's nothing we could do. And so that's why we care so much about, well, what can be built today? Is that worse or better? And so I want to make sure you have all the information you need, and if you have additional questions, you can contact us, you can contact Ms. Dry. She'll make sure to get you all the answers to all your questions. Any other comments from council? All right, thank you, Ms. Dry. And thank you again for being here. All right, we now move to our next rezoning, which is item number 5, 21 REZ 11 Kilmaine Place Senior Living. Principal Planner Anna Revling will introduce the item. Council will not take action on this item tonight. and it will be referred to our Planning and Zoning Board and returned to us at a future date. Ms. Redlin.
Thank you. This is a request to rezone 3.24 acres at 128 Southwest Maynard Road. Many of you have seen this site before. The property has some development challenges due to its configuration and location, and has remained undeveloped over the years as the owner has tried to find the right fit. You may recall in 2016, a request for mini storage was denied because the plan didn't support that use. Then in 2018, a request to stretch the general commercial zoning over the entire property was approved. Now, the owner has teamed with a partner to develop senior apartments, but because that use isn't permitted in the general commercial district, he's requesting the rezoning that's before you tonight. The property has about 200 feet of frontage along Southwest Maynard Road, but the main portion of the site sits back from the road behind a small commercial strip center. To the east is the Mayfair Plaza Shopping Center. To the north and west is the Burt Rose subdivision. And you'll see just above the northeast corner is Rose Street Park. And you can see the Glen Air expansion is proximity there in the northeast. The current zoning is general commercial conditional use. General commercial allows a wide range of uses: retail, services, restaurants, offices, but a zoning condition prohibits kennels, veterinarian offices with outdoor kennels, nightclubs, bars, hotels, and motels. And another zoning condition requires increased building setbacks from adjacent residential properties. The majority of the property also falls within the Mayfair Mixed-Use Overlay District, and 2 corners of the property fall outside of the mixed-use district. The applicant is requesting to rezone the property to mixed use and to extend the mixed-use overlay boundary to fully align with the property boundary. There are no greenway corridors within or adjacent to the site, but as we noted before, the Rose Street Park is adjacent. The subject property abuts Southwest Maynard Road, a 5-lane thoroughfare. Kilmaine Drive, a local street, is located directly across Maynard Road from the property. If this rezoning is approved, the project developer will extend Kilmaine Drive to provide access into the property and then construct a roundabout to connect Kilmaine Drive extension with Gordon Street. Go Cary Route 5 serves Kildare Farm Road, approximately 1,200 feet east of the subject property. Bus stops are located on Kildare Farm Road at the Mayfair Plaza and also at the Maynard Road intersection. Cary's GIS maps indicate the possible presence of a stream on the extreme southern portion of the site. Field determination will be required at the time of development plan review. This is a view looking west down Maynard Road, and the site is on the right. There are no overhead utility lines along the subject site's frontage on Maynard Road, but overhead lines running along the opposite side of Maynard cross over to the subject site in the vicinity of Kilmaine Drive. And per the LDO, all utility lines are required to be installed underground. Because the request is for MXD mixed zoning within a mixed-use overlay district, the applicant has prepared a preliminary development plan and proposes conditions and standards unique to the subject property. The applicant proposes to limit the use of the property to 84 age-restricted multifamily units, a maximum building height of 49 feet or 4 stories. We'll also record covenants requiring that at least 80% of the occupied units will have a resident age 55 or older, and will develop according to other standards of the preliminary development plan. And here's an overview of the preliminary development plan, showing the proposed site layout. The 84-unit apartment building is accessed by Kilmaine Drive extension and the roundabout. The building overlooks the parking lot here. The LDO requires 600 square feet of gathering space, but the applicant is proposing a total of 980 square feet of gathering space distributed over 4 locations. 3 of the gathering spaces each contain bench seating and a patio, and the red triangle represents a 4th gathering space with a pavilion. The stormwater control measure will be located here, and a tree survey has revealed there are no champion trees located on the site. The applicant has proposed buffers that meet or exceed LDO requirements. A 40-foot wide buffer on the north end adjacent to residential, a 20-foot buffer adjacent to Rose Park. Within the mixed-use overlay district, no perimeter buffer is required along internal property lines. But the applicant proposes a 10-foot wide buffer with evergreen plantings here, and a 50-foot wide streetscape will be provided along Maynard Road and streetscape plantings along the west side of Kilmaine Drive extension, which as a local street, the LDO does not require it to have a streetscape. The applicant's proposal also includes 2 modifications of LDO standards. First, the applicant is requesting the ability to clear and replant as necessary the streetscape along Maynard Road due to very uneven existing topography, as well as the grading that will be necessary for the construction of the Kilmaine Road extension. The LDO requires preservation of existing healthy trees in buffers and streetscapes unless there is justification for their removal. Second, the applicant is proposing a parking rate of 0.75 space per bedroom. Cary's recently completed multifamily parking study recommends a rate of about 1 space per bedroom for multifamily residential, with an additional 0.15 space for visitor space per unit. Though the study didn't differentiate between age-restricted and non-age-restricted multifamily complexes. The applicant has submitted data supplied by project partner Beacon Management Corporation, a company that owns and manages apartment communities. Beacon Management surveyed 5 age-restricted apartment developments to determine each development's parking to unit ratio and believes the data justifies the proposed rate of 0.75 space per bedroom. Those surveys are included as an attachment to your staff report. They did receive some more surveys later, but we just received those yesterday evening, and it was too late to put them with the staff report, but we will include them as it moves forward to the Planning and Zoning Board. Staff's review of the rezoning request finds policy recommendations from the Live, Shape, Move, and Serve chapters of the Imagine Cary Community Plan are relevant. Beginning with this case, staff will be analyzing rezoning requests against Serve chapter's environmental policies. In the Live chapter, the relevant policies are provide more housing options, support residential infill. In the Shape chapter, focus intense development in mixed-use destinations near transit, facilitate infill development to capitalize on existing infrastructure, and provide harmonious transitions. In the Move chapter, provide additional system connections. And in the Serve chapter, improve air quality, preserve and protect the urban tree canopy. On the future growth framework map, the subject site is located primarily within a commercial mixed-use center with 2 areas on its western perimeter located within the heritage neighborhood category. Heritage neighborhoods such as the Burt Rose subdivision were built during Cary's first suburban boom. Usually have a wide variety of housing types and densities. Commercial mixed-use centers should be compact, walkable, and have an integrated mix of commercial, office, and residential, 3 to 7 stories, transitioning down to 2 to 3 stories. Uses may be mixed vertically or horizontally. This slide shows the site's location on the western edge of the Mayfair Commercial Mixed-Use Center. The proposed project, with a maximum building height of 4 stories, would add residential density needed for a successful commercial mixed-use center. Its location at the edge of the center also means the project would serve as the transition to the adjacent Burt Rose neighborhood. Commercial mixed-use centers should have a well-defined and interconnected street and pedestrian network. The Kilmaine Drive extension and roundabout will provide additional connectivity. Sidewalks along the street will provide pedestrian access. Restaurants may walk to a park, shopping, and to the bus stop at the Mayfair Plaza via sidewalks. Additional services and shopping are available along Killdeer Farm Road, but would require crossing busy thoroughfares. Mixed-use centers should have an active pedestrian realm where buildings front streets, In this case, the side of the building would front Kilmaine Drive Extension, but its main facade and entrance would face north toward the parking lot. Staff's preliminary findings are that the proposal provides a new housing option for seniors near shopping and transit, though pedestrian routes to some shopping and services require crossing thoroughfares. It increases connectivity with the Kilmaine Road extension and provides a signalized egress for Birchrose residents onto Maynard Road. Provides residential density on an infill site in a targeted mixed-use center, making efficient use of existing infrastructure. Removes tree canopy in order to provide new road connections and new housing. And with the proposed apartments, it provides an effective use transition between nearby commercial and the detached residential. But on this relatively small site, there isn't much room for a gradual step down in building mass and height that would make the most harmonious visual transition. As the case progresses, staff will continue to analyze this proposal against the Cary community plan policies. Notice of the public hearing was mailed to property owners within 800 feet of the subject property, published on the town's website, and posted on the property. Planning staff facilitated a virtual neighborhood meeting for the rezoning on August 4th, 2021. 8 property owners participated. Concerns included stormwater drainage, clearing of trees next to houses, the height of the building, and visual impacts, noise, and loss of backyard privacy. Since the neighborhood meeting, staff has also received 3 emails from citizens expressing concerns about stormwater and potential visual impacts. Another had concerns about building height, potential light impacts, and future construction noise. And the third was concerned about the potential for construction traffic along Gordon Street, which would be the connecting street. And this concludes my presentation. The applicant, Doug Ledson, is here to provide his comments.
Good evening. I'm Doug Ledson, as many of you know. I've been here a few times. I'm hoping this will be the winner. I'm going to put my watch in here so I can keep track on time. Anyway, as you know, we've tried to move forward with different types of uses of this property. We've been trying to be sensitive, very sensitive to the neighbors, as I think many of you are aware. But at the same time, you know, we understand that we also need to be aware of Cary's needs, their long-term goals, and their needs for the whole community, not just a particular one area. And that's what we've been trying to do. We've gone in different avenues here on trying to come up with something that would attain both. I'm not sure whether it was about a year ago. I saw an article dealing with Cary on the aging of Cary and the need for senior living projects. We know Glen Eyre has helped that in a big way. The finished project is going to be wonderful. The issue that we've had with it, though, is that because you've got that 6-story building, that steel structure right now, and then they've got security lights and everything else, we've got a couple of neighbors that still, they perceive that this is going to look even something like that. And of course, since that's what they get to look at every day, and especially at night, it kind of, I guess, hits a raw nerve. And we understand that. Big difference on this product is that we are trying to keep a residential look. We are wanting to have a residential roof on it. Because again, this is going to be a transition from commercial into a single family. With commercial, we, of course, council was asking, well, what kind of uses? Well, you've heard the uses. We can go from 3 to 7-story on different offices. We can go with all but those 3 uses, whether it be a gas station, whether it be pharmacy or anything else. I have really refrained from pushing into the commercial, because even though the neighbors went along with it, they kind of begrudgingly, all right, well, if we have to do it, since all, to get this half an acre, we have to do it, okay, don't do this, don't do that, but really, we prefer not having anything, anything commercial. Anyway, so I started looking at that, and I said, well, let's look at doing senior apartments. I reached out to so many apartment developers, and what I ran across is that they all wanted bigger developments. I found one that about the smallest they wanted was 160 units, but they said, really, we prefer 200. That's, for us, the magic spot, and I've kind of found that with a number of other developers. So I thought, well, maybe if we could get something that we knew that they could support, maybe they would go with the smaller development. So I approached planning, and I said, well, how about 120 units? That'd be a 6-story building. And, planning, they just told me, they said, that is not something we can support. We cannot have a 6-story building right beside these single family. So with that, again, trying to reach out to other people that would go with maybe a smaller density. I'm sorry, one thing I need to clarify. What is the reason for this higher density? What I've gotten from all of them is that it's the operating expenses, whether it be property taxes, manpower, maintenance, et cetera. And I know that some senior developments have been built that are smaller in the triangle. I think what you'll find is that in the future, and those that are on the books that are moving forward are bigger developments, because they're finding it more and more necessary in metropolitan areas where labor rates are higher, taxes are higher, to go with a larger development. So what we proposed was 84 units. I got 2 different developers that were focused or had some interest in that. I chose Beacon because they've got quite a wide array of experience, both in family apartments and in senior, in both. And they're the ones that said there's a huge difference in their family developments versus their senior. The ones that you did see, I mean, that's one thing I'll say on your consultant. I'm surprised they didn't distinguish that there is a difference between senior and regular single-family or millennial developments. Because with those, everyone drives. But with seniors, and we've got some of the ones that we provided here even show, full rate senior developments are still considerably below 75%. Out of the ones that we did send, I think there's about 12 that have been sent in so far. We've had the highest percentage has been 78% of the units had vehicles. That's the highest. So what we're proposing, it says 70.75 per bedroom, works out to 1.02 per unit. In a senior development, one of the things that we do find is that majority of the 2 bedrooms only have 1 occupant. If they do have 2, it's normally a couple with only 1 vehicle. But many of the people will retire their vehicles, especially with the service van, with the buses that are close by. And the other thing is being the walkability of going to places that they would normally want to walk to, whether it be grocery store, et cetera. They felt that this site fit all those needs. Now, those people that, as I said, where they've expressed a concern, we had one individual especially saying, well, we want it at 3-story. And that's great. I mean, there's a lot of things I want too, but we could go with an office with a higher level. We want to make this to be a viable project. We know with the architectural standards that it's going to be a great-looking building, but we want to have a residential roof on it. That gets us up to the 49 feet. So that's where our focus is. Again, I guess that's that's the end of this thing, so I stayed in the 10 minutes. Is that it, or do I?
Thank you.
Questions?
You're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
right. Now's the time for the public hearing for 21 REZ 11 Kilmaine Place Senior Living. And I'll call on our town clerk to summarize written comments, call on remote speakers, and this will be followed by those who signed up to speak in person.
We had one submitted comment from Elizabeth White, shared her opposition to a building with more than 3 stories, requested more landscaping to help with sound and reduce light, and requested a paved pedestrian walkway connection to Rose Street Park. We have 2 call-in speakers on the line. Our first call-in speaker is Patrick Teasman. Patrick, if you're...
Thank you, yes. Should I speak now? Is that okay?
Yes, please proceed.
Oh, thank you. Myself and my father-in-law, George Carr, who I believe is on as well, represent Beacon Management Corporation. We have a very long career of providing both family and senior housing in a variety of different complexes. Maybe I should let, if George is on, I'll let him give the introduction to Beacon, and then I'll be able to answer any other questions on the development.
Okay,
George, are you on?
George is our
Hello.
next speaker.
Okay. Please proceed.
Yes. Have you? Yes. Have I been unmuted?
Yes, we can
Can you hear me?
Please proceed.
Okay. Good. Yes. Beacon Management is was founded back in 1979, and our focus has been actually with a very substantial emphasis towards senior housing. We do family housing as well, but for instance, within Greensboro, we have 10 or more communities. I think actually 11, and virtually all of them are senior communities. So it's been a specialty of our company. We've tried to focus on the developmental quality, so we always try to architecturally do some things that are pretty special and to keep the components to the building and so forth at a very, very high standard. And we've been very successful at that. The question that seems to keep emerging is the adequacy of the parking, and we've had to deal with this, of course, over the many years, and one-to-one parking is for senior communities is very, very adequate. I went by one of our communities just tonight, and it's a 54-unit community, and if we get 30 cars in the parking, and that includes guests and residents, that's a big day in terms of traffic. So I would like to at least make the pitch that a parking concession is really, really helpful. It allows us to expand the greenery. It just makes for better functioning communities. As to any other questions you might have, I'm very happy to respond.
Thank you.
Those were our 2 call-in speakers, and we didn't have anybody registered to speak.
Is there anyone attending that would like to speak at this public hearing? Please.
I'm Larry Bowder. I'm at 922 Devon Avenue. You can see the D of Devon Avenue just under the P of public hearing. Actually, Doug came to our community over a decade ago to talk about senior living in this location. And the neighborhood shot him down. He came back later with other propositions, but this is becoming one of the best ideas that he's been able to float, as it turns out, because of the other options not being available. I'm one of the ones that is reluctant to see a 4-story building in this location. However, I really don't like seeing a 6-story building from my front yard. I don't know how a hotel restriction got through with a building that's as big or bigger than many of the hotels in the community for Glen Air. I would like to commend Doug for keep trying. He's been very open to the neighborhood, been very direct in letting us know what's going on and what the options are. And I thank him for what he's been doing.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak at this public hearing? Please come forward.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Shamlin, and I'm the property owner at 136 Rose Street, which is literally in the backyard of Glen Air's construction project. My house has shook every day since that project was started, so I agree with the noise concerns in another large construction project. I am concerned for the foundation of my house, quite honestly, with how much my house is shook. But I do like the prospect of this living community, this affordable housing for senior living. It will be a quiet neighborhood. I'm looking forward to Glen Air when it's done. I think it'll be a quiet neighborhood also, and I think it will be attractive because what Glen Air builds is attractive. My main concern or request would be at the edge of the parking lot to keep as much of the tree canopy as is already existing, because we like looking out our yards and seeing our pretty green trees out there and not just seeing another large building in our backyard. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Anyone else to speak at this public hearing? Okay, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing and open it up to council members for questions or comments.
Just a few comments, I guess. I heard a lot tonight, both from the call-in speakers as well as Mr. Ledson, regarding architecture. They used words like it will have a residential roof on it. They used words like architecturally very special, but I didn't see anything in the zoning conditions that ensure that what is said is what we get. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
There are none.
So there's still some work to be done there. I would share the speakers and some of the emails we got, comments regarding buffering, especially in regards to the parking lot in the Birch Rose neighborhood. I think that's very important. Obviously, keeping the mature trees that are there and possibly supplementing them with new plantings, not just removing all of them and starting from scratch. So I definitely want to see something there. Lighting in the parking lot. I know a lot of places throughout town have done some pretty innovative things to ensure that the light stays on their site and not bleeding off into the surrounding area. I think we can do something there. My concerns regarding the MXD designation were alleviated with the restriction regarding senior housing. I think that's okay. I like the idea of actually getting the neighborhood a signalized exit near them. I think that could be helpful for them. And this is obviously not a topic of consideration, but I think they can do better with the name. Kilmaine Place for a senior housing project just something seems inherently wrong with that. I think they could possibly maybe even look to the neighboring community for inspiration. Birch Rose is a pretty cool name that we don't see maybe enough of, but so yeah, I think some work can be done there, but those are my comments.
Other questions or comments?
Go ahead, Lori.
Just a couple of comments. One, I am a bit concerned about the parking that abuts the park, Rose Street Park. I know that there's going to be some sort of screening, but that's a pretty large, parking lot right across from a street. If we limit the amount, it's already a small park to begin with, and And I often see people parking on the side of the road there. But I also feel like people might start to spill out from the park into the parking lot. So that's a bit of a concern. I thought it was interesting that one of our speakers says, I think this is great, we might have affordable senior housing, but I didn't see anything about affordable housing as a condition within this plan. So if we're going to be talking about it, it should be, and talking about this, and I know that Deacon's done some affordable housing, it should be somewhere as a condition as well. I don't think it's a bad place. It's a nice transition between, the single-family homes over until what's going on with Glen Air and that shopping. I'd like to see, I agree with one of the writers about a pedestrian access. I think that's a great idea, very important. But I have to say, it still feels a bit bizarre. It doesn't seem totally baked, so I'm really looking forward to what this is going to look like by the time it gets back to us.
Ms. Robinson?
Yeah, I agree with all those comments. The 2 additional points I want to make, one is around that best management practice for that stormwater pond. It'd be really nice if we could have that be something besides a wet pond, if there can be a dry pond or some other combination of devices, just because I think those wet ponds are not usually that attractive. So, and if it is going to be a wet pond, then to give us confidence that it's going to be okay, there need to be conditions that talk about the treatment of that pond. And by treatment, I don't mean spraying it, I mean what the aesthetics are around it. And then the second thing is, I'll just express that 10-foot evergreen buffer seems really, really thin, given the adjacent uses. So that does concern me that it's so narrow. But I don't know what can be done, because I know they already have compressed the parking down, and I'm sure they want to buffer the neighbors to the north, so it makes it pretty challenging.
Any other questions or comments?
No, I think, I'll just, I won't repeat all the things that have been said. I think those are good points. It was more like we're hearing, we're really going to do a good job. Well, the good job, the secret is in the details, and the details are the conditions. And I think you've heard examples tonight of the work you have to do to demonstrate that it really will be a good fit, complement Glen Air, it'll complement the neighborhood there. Anything you can do with the plantings, improving them, that's a critical point. But the message I want to get out is, you've heard a lot of examples tonight from all of us. You better start getting them in writing, and not just trust me. It's really that simple.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I really like the age-restricted piece of this and would love to see it succeed. I do think we need more robust conditions on a lot of things with this. Happy to see that the SERV chapter is being implemented for the first time in a rezoning review. I would like to see the applicant do a little bit more to try to implement some of the policies in that SERV chapter, which is the environmental chapter of the plan. But I really would like to see this succeed if possible.
Anything else?
Yeah, glad to see more senior housing units added to our town. And I just want some clarifications that when a senior housing development is added, would there be considerations in terms of the additional bus stops, even to move closer to the senior development? I know there are two very close for Kildare Farm Road, but perhaps not really close enough for the seniors, right? Even walking. I'm just wondering that would be a consideration.
It could be, sure.
Yeah, good point.
Anything else? All right. This will go to our Planning and Zoning Board in a month or two for their review and recommendation, and return to us in about 3 or 4 months, give or take a month or two. And we'll make a decision at that time. Thank you, Ms. Redland.
Thank you.
We had one item pulled for discussion, that was 21 REZ07, and I'll recognize Councilmember Liu at this time.
Yeah, Mr. Patel and Ms. Wilmar and reached out to me, and they expressed that they didn't get the opportunity to fully participate in the public hearing, and the neighbors weren't aware of it, and there was some confusion when the timing was, and they called 911 and didn't have sufficient information, so they really wanted the item to be pulled, so their concerns can be adequately addressed and answered. In particular, they expressed strong desire for the new subdivision to have 2 access points onto Mills Road, and they wanted to, add that 55 home subdivision, hopefully, maybe provide direct access to Green Level Church Road. And they also expressed concerns regarding the stormwater. And I'm just wondering if the staff can provide some additional clarifications in terms of how to best address their concerns, and so they get some reassurance in terms of our commitment, how to make sure a solid development can be put in place.
As far as the access points and things,
Yeah.
access and egress would normally be and is addressed during the development plan. And we have not actually received a development plan, that has the details or proposes final access points. But the transportation and traffic staff are certainly open to discussion if they receive a development plan that shows an access onto Green Level Church Road. It would have to be analyzed for safety and work with DOT because that's a NCDOT road. So it's not guaranteed there could be one, but they are certainly open to looking at that if that is a proposal that comes forward on the development plan. They need to have something, a location to look at it against Mills Road, other intersections, the spacing, and those kinds of things. So they just haven't received anything yet to actually, in a proposal to analyze yet, since it was just the rezoning stage right now.
I have a follow-up question on that. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Ms. Redling, it's my understanding that typically a subdivision like this would have an access point in all directions. It would have one to the east, one to the west, and one to the south. So we know that there's one that would exist here to the north. So would you anticipate that the typical development plan would come in with a stub in these different directions and then an exit out onto, at least a right in, right out onto Green Level Church?
I would expect that they would need to meet that connectivity ordinance unless there was some technical reason they couldn't. And also in looking at what is left to be developed around it. But that's where they begin. We have the connectivity ordinance, and then they show those stubs. And then you balance that as far as Green Level Church Road against what is feasible and safe, or whether there would be in future development surrounding a better place for an access onto Green Level Church Road, because it is a very busy road, and the spacing has to happen. So, but generally, yes, that we would expect that to come in.
So to that point, you would expect this neighborhood eventually to be fed by at least 2 access points rather than just this one. If for some reason it wasn't safe to put an access road onto Green Level Church Road, you would anticipate that there would be something built to the south that would then connect, and then it would be another exit point.
Ultimately, and that it would be ready for that. When that would happen depends on, of course, development. Yes.
Can you tell us generally how far away Ashley Rose Drive is from the property border here for this parcel?
Well, I would just be making kind of a guess.
Okay, that's all right.
Sorry. I would say it's pretty, a couple hundred feet at least, if not more.
Less than 100 feet, okay, all righty. So there's nothing that stands out at you, immediately you look at this and go, this isn't going to work to have an exit, right in, right out on this?
No, not to me. Of course, I don't have that expertise, but I think with more information and a proposal that would show where, for instance, the developer could envision a layout where that exit would be, then we'd have something to actually analyze and look at those distances. We just haven't had that proposal yet.
Okay. Do you know why the residents are under the impression that this would not have an exit point onto Green Level Church? Like, did the developer tell them that, or?
I'm not exactly sure. I know that they have talked to the developer and to other traffic people, and the developer may very well have said, well, we're going to exit onto Mills Road. There have been preliminary discussions about having 2 accesses onto Mills Road, but since they're preliminary and they haven't actually submitted the development plan, I hesitate to say that's their final choice. I don't think final decisions have been made, but they may have very well made that preliminary statement that that's what they're looking at.
Okay, and one last question, you may not be able to answer it, but regarding the traffic signal that was mentioned, that there's not one slated for in the expansion of Green Level Church Road. Was that determined based on what exists today? And so if more development came, it could meet warrants then for a traffic signal? Or was that anticipated? Like, did the town already kind of predict what would be built here and say, yeah, it'll never be qualified for a signal?
I don't have that information. I'll have to do some research and get back to you on that, because I actually don't have the answer, what that was based on.
Okay.
I know they have to reach certain traffic counts. Oh,
That's all.
I'm sorry. And this is our Assistant Transportation Director, Juliet Andy, so she can help.
Hi there, thanks, Anna. We haven't ruled a traffic signal out at this time. And just for clarification, on Green Level Church Road, the plan that was referenced by some of the citizens, that was done in 2018. So those access points that were proposed were done based on the context of the land uses at that time. So at the point there's a funded study, we would relook at all those access points as part of the design process.
Oh, okay, so that's probably where they got the idea that there would not be, because the land was vacant at the time, the town didn't consider an access point. Now it'd be developed, so that would be reconsidered.
It was a conceptual study, and the focus was really on keeping it context sensitive to respect the rural historic character of the area. But yes, as things change, if and when there's a project that's funded, then as part of the design process, we'll look more closely at those access.
Oh, I see. Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
Other questions or concerns?
If I may, I just got a message from one of our engineers, and he just said, once the developer provides a layout, we can work with them to make sure safe and adequate access is provided. And if the applicant proposes a direct access onto Green Level Church Road, it can be considered if it meets all access management requirements.
Okay, that's very helpful. The only other thing I would ask, I guess, Ms. Redling or Mr. Stiegel, is Ms. Slate had some ditch drainage problems. Can we have somebody work with her on that?
And our standard has changed now, right? I mean, no more ditch drainage neighborhoods.
It has.
Right, so we won't be making that
This
mistake
has to-
again.
This could only improve the area.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Send it the other way.
Okay.
Okay, if we don't have any other questions or comments, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the following documents attached to the online agenda, that we approve the statement of consistency for 21 REZ07, Mills Residential rezoning attached to this motion, and rezoning ordinance 21 REZ07.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Ms. Redling.
Thank you.
That concludes the regular agenda. We will now go into closed session, and I'll entertain a motion from Councilmember Bush.
Pursuant to GS 143-318, 11A 1, 3, and 6, I move that we hold a closed session to consider the qualifications, competence, performance, character, fitness, conditions of employment or appointment, or conditions of initial employment of one or more individual public officers or employees, and to consult with attorneys employed by and/or retained by the town in order to preserve the attorney-client privilege between the attorneys and the town, and to prevent the disclosure of information that is made privileged or confidential pursuant to the laws of the state or not considered a public record within the meaning of Chapter 132 of the General Statutes.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and we will move into 10035 for closed session. We'll reconvene the council meeting. We've concluded our business for the evening, so meeting adjourned.